If you asked me what the best game of our generation was, I'd say West of Loathing. Sorry, but nothing can beat that masterpiece. But if you asked me what the second best game of our generation was, I'd think long and hard about it, and then I'd probably say Cat Game. No, not that one. This one. Now, if you're part of 99.9% of the human population, you're probably thinking to yourself right now, what the hell is Cat Game? Well, allow me to explain. Cat Game is a 2D linear RPG, which is relatively simple to play. You play as an exiled cat prince who can walk around, attack, pick up items, and otherwise interact with things, going from level to level. A typical level might look like this, with enemies like those boars, interactable objects like those statues, and that door, which serves both for the end of a level and a currency, but more on the second part later. As mentioned previously, Cat Game is a linear game, and it takes place throughout 5 worlds, or temples as they're called in the game, each with 5 levels within them. Each new temple introduces different types of enemies and new mechanics, and Cat Game does a great job with this, just easing you into the flow of the game instead of giving you everything at once and overwhelming you. When you start the game, you're in the Fire Temple, and the game seems pretty basic. The first 2 levels are just simple avoid the enemy levels, and the game seems really just simple. And then you meet Yenny. Yenny is the game's shopkeeper, but also the main source of early and middle game dialogue and exposition. Just, maybe don't provoke him. Yenny has a bunch of items that he sells, and they start out pretty bland in the early game, but they can expand into some interesting and powerful items in the later temples. You can buy these items from Yenny using doors, which you get 1 of whenever you beat a level. However, if that was the only way to get currency, the game would be boring, as there would be a set amount of doors you could get and no more, limiting how expensive and thus how strong items can be. Luckily, there's another way to get currency. Gambling. In every one of Yenny's shops, you'll have 2 gambling games. Domino Empire, a strategy-based domino game where you must conquer all your opponent's dominoes while in turn protecting your own. Domino Empire is such a fun part of Cat Game, as it really is a full-fledged strategy game, not just a luck-based currency gambler to see if you might get more currency or might lose it. You actually have to use a strategy that you can discern. But if strategy isn't your style, Yenny will also have a second gambling game that rotates every time you meet him. These rotating games, such as dice rolling and memory, are a lot less skill-based. Alright, you've met Yenny, probably got your first weapon from him. You go into the next level, fight some enemies, move on. Up until now, Cat Game has seemed like a nice puzzle game with a little bit of combat, but pretty simple and basic, even with Yenny. That all changes, though, in level 5 of the Fire Temple, when you encounter Boristar, the first boss in Cat Game. If you asked me what the 3 best things about Cat Game are, the bosses would definitely be up there. There's a boss at the end of every temple, and the first boss you fight is Boristar, the Lord of Brimstone. The first time you see Boristar, big and menacing with his health bar, when all other enemies you fought so far have been one hit, you just think, oh shit. The moment I saw Boristar, I knew Cat Game would be a wild and fun ride. Although Boristar is a rather basic and easy boss in comparison to the more late-game bosses, he completely flips everything you thought you knew about Cat Game on its head. Movement is limited to adjacent locations? Nope, Boristar can dash through the entire map. All enemies die on 1 hit? No, Boristar has 10 health. Boristar takes all the things you've learned about Cat Game so far and puts you to the test, expecting excellence in order to survive. After fighting Boristar, I thought that surely nothing could be better. Cat Game must have put its best boss first to reel players in, right? Wrong. Every single boss I fought in this game had its own unique behaviors, mechanics, and most importantly, they were all really fun except for one, but we're not going to talk about them. Losing to a boss would help me learn how to beat it, and finally beating a boss was unbelievably rewarding. And let's just say there was more than one way to beat a boss. If you recall earlier, I said there are 5 temples in Cat Game, and a boss at the end of every temple. So you'd think that that would mean that there would be a total of 5 bosses in this game, right? Nope! There are a ton of secret bosses, as well as a bunch of remix bosses in Dark Temple. Hell, I beat Cat Game, and there are still a ton of bosses I haven't even fought. But even with all this ranting on how much I love Cat Game bosses, I still haven't even gotten to the best part about them. Boons. In my humble opinion, boons are one of the biggest things in Cat Game that makes it a unique experience. Whenever you defeat a boss, you are presented with a choice of 3 boons, each giving you a special skill or ability, such as turning into an unmovable statue or being able to shoot fireball attacks. However, you can also reject a boon, denying the powers presented to you. You're probably wondering the same thing I did now, why the hell would you reject a free ability? Well, aside from story reasons and affecting how Dark Temple will play out, rejecting a boon will allow you to upgrade an existing boon you already have into one of 3 more ways. So if you had accepted the fireball and then rejected the next thing, you could have gotten an option for like a double fireball. And if you don't have any boons yet, it'll give you better future boons. The boon rejection system is genius, as it allows you to progress a skill tree of sorts of your chosen boon, and is what really makes playthroughs of Cat Game so different from each other. You can have your character be a mage shooting fireballs and lightning blasts from range, or a completely different rogue who dashes into battle, moving 5 times before an enemy can even react. It all depends on what boons you choose, and how you choose to upgrade them. Now, as you progress through the temples, you encounter more and more mechanics and fight more bosses, growing more powerful as you do all that. However, even with all that, the first 4 temples you go through pretty much follow the same formula. 2 regular levels, then Yenny, then another level, then the boss. This all changes with the final temple, the temple I'm sure you've heard me mention throughout this video a lot. Dark Temple. Now, I'm not going to go into lots of the specifics of Dark Temple, as it's the final temple in the game and it contains major spoilers, but I will say this. It is where Cat Game completely changes. The story, which up until now had pretty much just been a background thing, really picks up. Dialogue is also a lot more prevalent, but neither of those things are the truly huge change in Dark Temple. Up until now, most players have basically been playing the same game. They've been doing the same levels, fighting the same enemies, and yes, although boon choices can drastically changes in the player, it doesn't actually change the content you're getting. But Dark Temple is different. Based on certain choices you make earlier in the game, levels in Dark Temple will change completely. There are so many tiny choice differences that can completely change up what the levels are. And the final boss can range anywhere from a cakewalk to an impossible struggle depending on what choices you've made. But regardless of whether it's easy or hard, it'll still be really fun. There are also so many little decisions you can make within Dark Temple, which change later levels in Dark Temple. And no matter what you do, what you get, the ending is still satisfying, it wraps everything up, it feels great. And that's Cat Game. You've beat it, you beat the final boss, you got the ending, it's done. It's not like there's anything more, right? Nope, there's a New Game Plus and a DLC. Want a different ending? Made the wrong choice when selecting a boon? Want to do a completely different skill tree? Just want to see what happens if you make a certain other choice in Dark Temple? Well, New Game Plus is here for you. New Game Plus isn't just the same game, but you keep everything you got. Oh no, the game's difficulty scales in direct correlation to how strong you are, always providing a new challenge even if you can do 40 damage with one hit. And you can go into any level you want, you don't have to play the whole game all through if there's certain things you don't want to have to redo. And to make things better, there's this DLC called Time Stream, which as of writing this, I haven't even played yet. And I haven't even mentioned the multiplayer campaign, which apparently, and I say apparently since I don't have any friends to play it with, is completely different from the base game, having different levels, different bosses, different boons. Also, there's a multiplayer PvP mode, which I don't even know how it works because I haven't even looked at it yet. And all this and more is what makes Cat Game a really good game. It does what many RPGs really struggle to do: keep you involved even after you beat the base game. And that, as well as every other praise I have given this game in this video, is why I think Cat Game is one of the greatest games of this generation. Now, if I've done my job well, you should be thinking, where can I get Cat Game and how much is it? And you should have completely forgotten what the title of this video is. Now, to your questions, my answer to you is good news and bad news. The good news is that Cat Game is completely free, but the bad news is it isn't available on any regular site like Steam, the App Store, the Microsoft Store, etc. Cat Game is only available on Discord. Now, once the dread, shock, and nausea has worn off, you may think to yourself, on Discord? Is it like a bot? No, it's not a bot. It's manually managed on one server by one person who goes by the name of Mevib. And this, above all else, is what makes Cat Game unique. When you start up a game of Cat Game, you're not playing by yourself, ever. You have another person managing your game, giving tips, adding commentary, and making each playthrough special. When you use dialogue, the responses won't all be pre-recorded message implemented into the game by an AI. They will be genuine responses from the character. This means you can create your own headcanon stories, add content, world build, or just be goofy. You can be creative and think of an imaginative and not necessarily planned way to beat a level. You can give suggestions while playing the game on how to make it better. Hell, there's even a level in Dark Temple that's customized to what Mevib thinks you're the most interested in within Cat Game. For instance, one person that level, it was a combat level. For me, it was an extra companion and story. It changes for everyone. If it was ever made into a real coded video game, which isn't necessarily out of the picture, although it would still be a fantastically fun game, it would lose the human element of Cat Game. Now, don't worry, I may have exaggerated in the thumbnail a bit. You can play it, and for free too. There will be a link to a Discord server in the description of this video, and within that Discord server is a category for all things Cat Game. There you can ping Mevib, and if he's available, which is not all the time, I'd like to make that clear, he can start up a game of Cat Game with you. The rest of the server is this completely unrelated thing involving survival camps and writing, so unless you want to be sucked up into some batshit crazy story, you can just ignore the non-Cat Game stuff. Now, all in all, Cat Game is a fantastic game that you can truly see was made with love and care. There isn't a single part of the game that I dislike. No, goddammit, don't make me fight him again, no, please!